right. I am not Marco, but I am here because it is another episode of Catching Up with Jacob. Marco is with his family this week. So we just want to wish him happy times on the trails with his family. And I hope this is a good time for them to just catch up. But meanwhile, we're here to catch up with Jacob. Jacob, how are you doing this week?
I'm well in Jesus, praise the Lord, here in Tennessee. We were in Texas, prior to that, New York and Baltimore, but now we are in Tennessee, looking forward to Florida, the West Coast, and then back to New York and Baltimore, and then to Britain and beyond. So here we are. Praise God.
Praise God. Good to have you here, Jacob. And of course, we have David Lister, also coming from Tennessee.
Yeah, it's good to be back home in one's own bed, but we've got some upcoming meetings, which do you want me to read now or later?
Go ahead. Go ahead. I'll let me activate the itinerary. Let's talk about the itinerary right now. Jacob's gonna be in a lot of different places speaking, so take it away, David.
All right. We have District Coffee in Nashville. We have a meeting room there for 10 or so people. That starts at 10:30 on Saturday. You can go on the itinerary and get the address. Then he will be speaking at my house and also on my Zoom church, which meets in Pittsburgh. If you want to attend that either via Zoom or via come over, and we're going to have a meeting here, and Jacob will be speaking in my living room. Then on Thursday next, we're headed to Crystal River, Florida, where we have a fellowship meeting on the 25th at 10 o'clock. And so the details are there, and then followed by, we're going to be going south to Florida Atlantic University in Davie, Florida. And the address there, we have a meeting from 1 to 3. Jacob will be teaching on March the 3rd. And then we come back to Pittsburgh for a couple of days, nothing going, but we will be out in California at DeVore Church with special guest Dave Rizetto. And he will be speaking with Jacob, and they're having a meeting on Saturday and then on Sunday. And then Jacob will start his way back home, going back to his hometown of New York, and he will speak at the Open Door on Saturday the 18th, followed by Open Door in Baltimore. I think that's reversed. Isn't Sunday is the... No, that's the 16th, not on Saturday is the 16th. Sorry about that, not the 18th. And the 17th will be Sunday down in the Open Door. And then Jacob goes back to the UK. And he will then be coming back. He'll get to visit DeVore and the Open Door one more time in April. And then he heads over to the Far East, New Zealand, Australia, and on and on. So those will go up pretty soon, but please pray for us. This is a schedule for a 20-year-old man, and Jacob and I are a little bit older, but
just a little bit. By way of explanation, the house meeting from David's house is not a house meeting. It's a Zoom meeting for Eric's church in Pennsylvania.
I said that, Jacob.
Yeah, I know, but please don't come to David's house for the meeting unless you live really locally. It's a Zoom meeting. It's not a public meeting per se. And the other one is in Nashville. There's a prayer and Bible study group affiliated with us in Nashville of about 10 people, but anybody can come to that one. That is open to anybody who wishes to join us. Okay. When I get back to Britain, I will be in Essex in the south of England, and I am due also with Tim Worth in the north and Mark Jackson in the north of England in Cheshire. Those dates are posted on the Moriel itinerary on Moriel website, moriel.org. So we'd be happy to see you if you were in any of these locales. We're certainly looking forward to the Florida meetings. Thank you.
from Florida to Baltimore to New York to Tennessee to California, all the way to Essex. There are many places you have an opportunity to hear Jacob and David,
back over to
and
Mal,
back over.
and then we'll get New Zealand and Australia up soon.
Be patient, Jacob. Jacob will be coming down under soon. Another guest, surprise guest,
Japan and Philippines, yes, and Thailand.
Many places, all points across the map. Another guest that we have today, my tag team partner, the Ric Flair to my Hulk Hogan, Ken Smith.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Hey, how you guys doing? Good to be here today. Miss Marco, but you'll be back next week.
Yes, definitely will. Of course, cannot leave out the man behind this curtain, the great Oz himself, Davey from Down Under.
Hey, good to be with you guys.
All right. So we're done with roll call. Just want to remind everyone that everything that we do here, Catching Up with Jacob, the Bible studies, Ken's Corner, all of them can be found on our podcast. You can find our podcasts on anywhere where podcasts are broadcast, whether it be Apple, whether it be Spotify, whether it be Amazon Podcasts, Podchasers. Please download and have them as a backup for those long road trips or flights abroad. Perfect for eating up the time and learning something at the same time. And anyway, with all the introductions done, let's go ahead and start to catch up. Jacob, our first story that you actually told us about in the pre-show, Biden met with King Abdullah, and Joe assured the king that Jewish and Christian prayers would still be banned on the Temple Mount. I'm sorry, does the Temple Mount, is that part of the, like the United States sovereign territory now that they can determine?
Unfortunately, the late Moshe Dayan allowed the Jordanian government via something called the Waqf to remain in control of the Temple Mount. That was a big mistake, I believe. Many Israelis believe it was a mistake, not just for religious reasons, but for political and strategic reasons. However, the Jordanian government is only a nominal control. The Waqf is very much its own identity. It is associated with the Palestinian Authority. It is associated with various other Islamic governments informally. It is responsible for allowing the Al-Aqsa Brigade to perpetrate acts of violence, attacking Jews below, praying at the Wailing Wall, the Kotel. And then when the Israelis respond, of course, they claim the Temple Mount was violated by Jews, even though they're throwing projectiles to attack Jews below at the Wailing Wall. It is an intense place. Just think, the Jewish temple where Jesus preached, and of course, the American government under Joe Obama wants to ban Jews and ban Christians from it, pandering to radical Islam. And this is not just Islam, this is radical Islam. This is the Al-Aqsa Brigade and those who pander to it and are supportive of it. Unbelievable. But this is the kind of betrayal you see happening with the corrupt American government and the present administration, which is basically the third term of Barack Obama. Now, what you also see here is the fact that he's giving assurances, as you point out. What right does he have to assure what Israel's going to do? He tries to treat Israel as an American colony, that he can say this, and give these. How can he give assurances about anything that is not under American control? But that's who he thinks he is. You're dealing with a corruptocrat. You're dealing with a senile corruptocrat. His anti-Israel position would be much worse and much more aggressive if it wasn't an election year. He knows, or the Democratic Party knows, they can rely on the stupidity of liberal American Jews to vote Democrat, even if they ran Adolf Hitler for president. They know that there's enough stupid American Jews in New York and California and New Jersey and Connecticut and Florida who are going to vote for Adolf Hitler as long as he's a Democrat. They know they can rely on the stupidity of the majority of American Jews. Not all of them, but the majority of them. And that's the card. So because it's an election year, they're having to be careful. But the anti-Israel policies of the Obama regime right now trying to pressure Netanyahu to acquiesce to a Palestinian state, at the same time, the Palestinian Authority is supporting Hamas and the Hamas agenda, holding hostages and saying from the river, the Jordan, to the Mediterranean, the eradication of Israel, and Biden is trying to force Israel to acquiesce to making a state that says Israel has no right to exist. This is absurd. This is ridiculous. But this is the Obama administration. What frightens me, of course, is Zechariah chapter 12. Jerusalem will be a heavy stone, and all who lift it will hurt themselves grievously. It doesn't say except the United States. If the United States tries to lift that stone, the United States is going to be hurt. That's what God says. That's what Jesus says. Jesus, speaking in the first person by the Holy Spirit through the prophet Zechariah. All who lift that stone will be hurt. And Obama, acting through Biden, is trying to lift that stone. I pray to God that the judgment of God falls on Biden and Obama and on their administration so that it won't fall on America because of them. I'd rather God raise his mighty hand. I pray he raises his hand to the destruction of the Biden-Obama administration, that America will be preserved. If we lift that stone, Zechariah is clear. All who lift it will be hurt grievously, and Obama or Biden is trying to lift it.
I think they're already trying to lift it. I think they've already got their hands on the rock and they're already moving it by inches, just by the way the United States is trying to withhold support and give support at the same time to Israel. But at the same time, they've designated Hamas as terrorist organizations. But meanwhile, they talk with the Jordanian king saying, the king wants a ceasefire on all coastal enclaves held by Hamas. Now, how do you have diplomatic relationships with a terrorist organization if you're in America's position?
King Abdullah's father, King Hussein, stated something that Yasser Arafat stated. One stated it in 1960. One stated it in 1970. And one stated it in 1968. Jordan is Palestine. The Jordanian government has acknowledged that there is a Palestinian state, but it is a Palestinian state with a demographic majority of Palestinian Arabs, but a Hashemite Bedouin government from Saudi Arabia, of Saudi Arabian descent, of Arabian descent. So when you are the king and the monarch, and you're talking about autocracy here, a real king in the medieval sense, his word is supreme virtually, who has a legacy that he inherited from his father and his grandfather, something that was acknowledged by the British government after the mandate, by the League of Nations and by the United Nations, that Jordan is Palestine and Palestine is Jordan. Yasser Arafat claimed it, and his father affirmed it. He wants to get another Palestinian state so Jordan won't be it. But the demographic and the geographic reality is that Jordan is Palestine. There already is a Palestinian state, so he needs another one to preserve his own interest. That is what fuels everything that he does. Everything. It's what fueled what his father did. When his father essentially was opposed to the first Gulf War in 1991. His father opposed it, wanted to leave Saddam Hussein in power after Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait. Why? It's this Palestinian issue. He is a Bedouin. Hashemite Bedouin from the family of Muhammad, actually, the tribal clan of Muhammad, who is the king of a Palestinian state. It's a minority government, even though they're all Arabs. That is his predicament, and that is what he looks at. Additionally, let's understand something. The Jordanian government and its monarchs have been on the CIA payroll. I'm positive. Anybody I know who knows what they're talking about is positive. Have been on the CIA payroll since the 1970s at least. We pretty well know this. People were astounded the week before last when the 3 American military personnel were killed in Jordan. Most people didn't know there are American military personnel in Jordan. Understand that Jordan is a covert outpost of the American military and intelligence community. You're dealing with deep politics, deep state corruption, and you're dealing with a politically and demographically very precarious situation based on self-preservation of the Jordanian monarchy. That is what it comes to. That explains the behavior of King Abdullah. There's something else. He is King Abdullah II. His great-grandfather, King Abdullah I, was shot dead in the Al-Aqsa Mosque. I have seen the bullet holes in the pillar inside the mosque where his great-grandfather was shot dead by the Mufti's men from the Husseini family of Yasser Arafat for wanting to make peace with Israel during the days of Ben Gurion. He was shot dead. Like Yasser Arafat, like Bashar Jamiel, he was shot dead for wanting to make peace with Israel. And King Abdullah is haunted by that history. He knows he's in a precarious position. Remember, Black September 1970, to stop a takeover by Fatah and the Popular Front for Liberation of Palestine in 1970, Black September. The British trained and armed Jordanian Legion. Officers were trained in Sandhurst, the West Point of Britain. Systematically massacred between 15 and 18,000 Palestinians in 12 days. They killed a total of 25,000 Palestinians, and they deported forcibly thousands and thousands and thousands more from Jordan into refugee camps in Lebanon. That is the kind of history you're dealing with. The royal the royal family of Jordan is in a very, very eggshell situation. They walk on eggshells. They always have to watch their back. They have to watch the Palestinians. They have to watch Syria. They have to watch the West. They're in a precarious situation. They made mistakes in the past. One of their biggest mistakes was allowing Nasser to bamboozle them into attacking Israel in the Six-Day War in 1967. That was their biggest strategic mistake. They don't want to make another one. And they don't want to have to systematically exterminate more Palestinians the way they were forced to do in 1970. But don't think that another Black September is not possible if the Palestinians threaten the Jordanian regime. Now, in order to prevent that, they want another Palestinian state. Oh, that's Palestine, not Jordan. That's what they want to do. They want to remove the legal basis and historical basis. And they want an ignoring of the geographical and demographic basis that Jordan is Palestine. That is his game.
Thank you, Jacob. David, do you have anything to add to the conversation about what's going on between Biden and both Netanyahu and the King of Jordan? Anything to add?
He pretty well covered that subject. So,
all right. Well, then, Ken, I'll lob it to you.
The basis of what I've always said is Jerusalem is not mentioned in the Quran ever. And it goes to a deeper base. It goes to a way deep base, and as Jacob's put it many times, there's already a Antichrist on the Temple Mount. You know, God has no son. You know, the Quran verse. So
Abomination of desolation.
it goes way into the spiritual aspect of everything. We don't need to get into that, but just want to let you know it's Jerusalem's mentioned 700 times in the Old Testament, so and 0 in the Quran.
The Quran just says Al-Quds, which some, not all, some Islamic scholars identified with Jerusalem. Al-Quds.
Yeah.
But there's no proof that Al-Quds is Jerusalem.
There's solely. Yep. It's the third holiest site, according to them. Yep.
All right. Well, let's move on to our next topic. Rasmussen poll just recently came out. It's an amazing poll. The Biden administration is a failure. Yay or nay? And some surprising results. 86% of the respondents said that they do have a grip on reality, and Biden is indeed a failure. I guess there's still 14% that are still living in an alternate reality. So I'll leave it open to the floor. Rasmussen poll, can we trust it?
Rasmussen poll, of all the major polls, of all the major ones, has been the one that's been the most consistently credible. I don't really pay much attention to any of the other polls. Rasmussen has the track record for being the most accurate over the longest period of time. It carries weight. It carries a degree of credibility that the others, even the other major ones, don't. The Maris poll and those things, not. But certainly the Rasmussen poll, it has a track record going in its favor. And they tend to be nonpartisan. The other polls tend to be partisan. It is not partisan. So, or at least if it is partisan, it's less so than the other ones. So the majority of the American people consider the presidency of Biden to be a failure. How could they not? Here's what troubles me. Afghanistan would not have happened. Billions of dollars of military equipment gone to Islamic terror courtesy of Biden and Austin and Blinken and Jake Sullivan and Susan Rice. Billions. Of course, we know Obama pulls the strings. Wouldn't have happened if Trump was president. They only needed 3,000 to 3,500 American advisors to hold Bagram and the area around and support the government of Afghanistan, support the area around Kabul, and it wouldn't have happened. But Biden gave it to them on a silver platter, let 13 Americans get killed. Doesn't care about them or their families, obviously. And billions and billions in military aid. And opens the door for China. Don't forget, China has a border about 53 miles long with Afghanistan. This is what and China's trying to make a play and has made some, at least diplomatic gains inside Afghanistan. Next thing you have to understand is Ukraine would not have happened if Trump was president. Putin would not have done that if Trump was in the White House. You can't tell something like this to the biased idiots on TV shows like The View, those 5 monkeys who belong in the Washington Zoo.
It's an insult to monkeys.
It's an insult to monkeys. We get these 5 ridiculous old hags who ought to be in a zoo. You can't tell them, look, this would not have happened in Afghanistan. This would not have happened in the Ukraine if Trump had been president. They just don't factor that into the equation, even though they couldn't deny it plausibly. Then it is very unlikely. In fact, it's absolutely unlikely for all intent and purposes that Hamas would have conducted the October 7th incursion into Israel had Trump been president. Afghanistan wouldn't have happened. Ukraine wouldn't have happened. Gaza wouldn't have happened. And North Korea would not be shooting missiles over Japan again if Trump was president. It all happens because of Biden and his pack of baboons. Blinken, Austin, who's back in hospital. He's in hospital on critical condition, and Biden, commander-in-chief, didn't know that the Secretary of Defense was in critical condition in a hospital. How absurd can you get during a time of crisis in the Ukraine and Gaza? Unbelievable. People can be very stupid, but not that stupid. The only people who can be that stupid are the ones who watch The View. They are capable. They are actually capable of that level of subhuman intelligence. The people who listen to Whoopi Goldberg and Bihar, those people are actually capable of that level of subhuman intelligence. But most people, even Democrats, even liberals, are not that stupid. They know that when you have a consumer price index that does not take into account food and gasoline, the two main things that people are most concerned about with elevating prices, that the inflation is much worse under Biden than it's ever been. After that, the border. After that, a 34 trillion plus deficit. After that, anything. The man is across the board failed. He's a failed president. He's not even in control of himself, let alone the administration or the government. He's an across the board failure. Yes, there are those who are stupid enough to still vote for him anyway. There are enough stupid people who will do that. But they will vote for him or for some other Democrat who's no better than him, or no different than him at least, simply because they hate Trump. They're driven by their hatred of Trump. Forgetting the fact that Black Americans never had it so good in terms of unemployment, in terms of increased family income, in terms of prison reform. Blacks never had it so good as they did under Trump. That the economy was in much better shape. Much better. Inflation was under 2%. These wars would not be happening in Gaza, in the Ukraine. What happened in Afghanistan wouldn't have happened. North Korea was on a leash. It wouldn't have been happening. But they just forget all that because they're driven by their hatred, and they listen to what they're told by the mainstream media and social media because they're stupid people. But even stupid people cannot be that stupid all the time. They're stupid people. People who vote Democrat, and I'm not a Republican, but people who voted for Biden or Obama, they're stupid people. Absolutely stupid people. They're stupid. But even stupid people can't be that stupid as to see Biden, a senile old corruptocrat, a joke the world laughs at with an incompetent administration. He's surrounded by people who are totally inept, totally unqualified. People see that, and they vote with their pocketbook. They know that. So we see that. Yes, the Rasmussen poll is very indicative. However, as I'd like to talk about in a few minutes, that does not necessarily assure the Democrats won't win the next election, particularly given the latest election results.
But before we get there, Jacob, I wanted to add a question to the panel, especially about this poll. So 86% of the people who responded to the poll said that the Biden administration is a failure. Conceivably, 50% of the respondents are Democrat. So given that 50% of the 86% are Democrats and feel that the Biden administration is a failure, I'm just going to open up the question to everybody. How many will still vote for Biden, even though they say he's a failure?
Ken, you want to go first? I'll go after, whatever.
I'll go first. You can see that, after the Her report, a lot of the guy who went down to, I think it was Atlanta, and he was talking to a lot of Black voters, and they were like, I voted for Biden, but I'm definitely voting for Trump this time. I mean, they're actually changing a lot of people, this report, and it's out in the regular news. That's what's helping, I guess, and if you want to say helping. But Jacob said that I can see that either this I've talked about not having an election this year, or I'm pretty sure 2028 we won't have an election, but this year is kind of up in the air, and I can just see it happening, man.
Yeah.
In my opinion, we're going to have elections, but they'll be staged.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
It'll be
yeah,
like the
yeah.
third row.
This year stage. Yep.
They
This year will
won't, they
be
won't
staged
matter.
again.
They're gonna be
Yep,
staged
yep.
elections.
Yes,
See,
yes.
well, for me, I know Jacob when he says they're stupid, he doesn't mean they're congenitally stupid. He just that they make themselves stupid by the repeated
Yes.
errors that they keep making with the same people over and over. They just do this, and so the Bible talks about people making themselves stupid. Now,
Yeah.
I believe some of this is absolutely the spirit of error on these
Yes.
people. We're
Mm.
seeing Gen Z now coming into political play, but they're so liberal and so into the errors of ultra liberalism that permits all sorts of horrible things that you don't even want to talk about, and it's just that the most liberal crazy things are permissible. So that's happening, and also because I don't believe they're stupid, the leadership part, because I think they're really wise when it comes to being able to rig elections, wise when it comes to be able
Yeah.
to manipulate things. Like I said, I knew the Democrats back in the 80s when I lived there in Chicago. I knew where the warehouse was, where you went and picked up things. And I also knew how to, as a poll worker, how to get rid of Republican voters in your things. So they're not stupid when it comes to being wise in the ways of the Satan and how to get an election. And now we saw the video just the other day of a man testifying in court that he rigged a poll down in an election down in Florida, and nobody could know about it because it just runs behind the scene. So they know how to manipulate the machines to
Yeah.
change your vote. And
Dominion machines can be manipulated with just a pencil,
With the pencil.
which
Yeah.
has been suppressed.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so the Republicans do not, you need to have Republican poll workers in every precinct in America, but they don't. You have Democrat poll workers and Democrat election judges in the polls. And so they're going to do what they're going to do. They're hacks, political hacks, and they're just like the judge that just in New York that is a political hack that just brought the election down on Trump $370 million or 350 million. He wanted the Anita Hill, I believe her name. That might not be right. Anita Ella. She's a hack, ran on Get Trump. This court, that judge would not allow a jury trial. He would not allow this to be moved over to commercial division, which is where it would be supposed to be, and it would have been kicked out because nobody lost any money here. So everybody and his brother knows this is the type of politics that the Dems are playing everywhere. They are going after Trump. They're going after the elections. They're going after the machines. And if people don't wake up, I don't know if Trump can win. Not that I just don't know that a Republican can win anymore.
I believe it's Letitia James of New York went after.
Yeah.
Went
Who
after
ran
me.
on Get Trump, whose
Correct.
campaign Get Trump.
That was the only substance she had.
That was the only substance.
And
You've got
so
a governor who has the power to remove Bragg as district attorney in New York. Bragg, a man who lets violent criminals go to commit more crimes. And instead of removing him, the governor doesn't, that Huckle. These people are completely corrupt, totally corrupt. The only justice is people who voted for them tend to be the victims of the crimes most commonly. That people who vote Democrat are the ones getting stabbed, raped, murdered, robbed. That's the only justice in this. And the people
But
vote
we-
Democrat is they reap what they, that's the only justice to be found in it.
Yeah, their cities are being destroyed. You know, I read a statistic. It's interesting that if you remove New York, Chicago, LA, I think it was Denver and one other city from the list,
Detroit,
of
Philadelphia.
murder, we would be
Yep, Detroit.
189 in the world as far as murders. But
Yep, yep.
when you put it back in, we're number 4.
Yes.
So that's how much violence is going on in your cities. If you're out there and living in those cities, might be time to move down to Tennessee.
Yes. I remember back in 72, Joe Biden went after an incumbent. It says his name was Cale Boggs, and his age was 63. And he went after him and said he was too old.
Yes.
Well, I mean, Biden
So
has
you just have-
always been a bad man. He
Oh,
he
yeah.
used to talk so bad about blacks that, you know, if a Republican had said those things, they would have been drummed out
Oh.
of the
Oh, yeah.
legislature
Yeah, he
everywhere.
was a racist.
He was a
opposed-
racist. You know, and thankfully, Robert Kennedy Jr. put a video out of all of his horrible, despicable remarks. You know,
Mm. Mhm.
but I guess they're so spiritual. So many people are so spiritually blind right now that they're reaping what they sown.
Mhm.
Speaking
My
of
God.
someone who's a complete racist, as the next of the next story, Fani Willis had a very interesting day before a judge. Jacob, you brought this before us. Talk a little bit about what you saw.
He actually made the statement when questioned about her boyfriend with whom she was having an affair, a married man, still legally married. So it's an adulterous relationship. He's into adultery with her. And no prosecutorial experience. He is not a prosecuting attorney, never been a DA, never been a prosecutor, nothing like that. She pays him $700,000 of taxpayer money. They go on 5 vacation cruises together, expensive ones, top hotels. She is being remunerated indirectly for giving a job to somebody for which he was eminently not qualified. He was not that kind of a lawyer. And he admits that they were sleeping together while he was married to a different woman. He's an adulterer. And she says, at the inquest, I will not emasculate a black man. What is the fact that he's a black man? So you would emasculate a white one? Well, yeah, you would. You would emasculate a Hispanic or Native American or an Asian? This woman is a racist. Can you imagine what would happen if a white person, a white politician, particularly a Republican or a conservative, said anything like that? What the media would do. It's just like Eric Adams in New York. His racist statements. He doesn't talk about affirmative action and why he became a police captain. If did he make it by meritocracy or by affirmative action, by skin color? And he brags about how he passed up the white people and belittling whites because he was more smarter than they were. Was he? But even if he was, what if a white person had said that? And I don't know that he was. I suspect if he's affirmative action promotee. But leaving that, Barack Obama's church, Jeremiah Wright, goddamn America. That was, he preached it. Barack Obama and his wife are giving $500 a week to that church, and they had Louis Farrakhan, a crazy man who says he rides in flying saucers over Chicago, who's a vehement anti-Semite and a racist. Can you imagine if a white Republican went to a church that had David Duke or somebody speaking at it? But they get away with it. There's always 2 standards. This terrible woman, Willis, goes to a church where a white racist shot black people in Charleston, because it's a suitable location for propaganda purposes, stands in the pulpit, does not deny the adultery, does not deny this guy has no background as a prosecutor, does not deny the $700,000, does not deny the vacations and the remuneration, denies none of it, but says she's being persecuted because she's a racist. Same as Gay, president of Harvard, only had her job because of her skin color and her gender, her sex, whatever it is. An anti-Semite, a defender of horrific anti-Semitism, 20 years of proven plagiarism, writes an article in the New York Times saying she's not a plagiarist, even though she admits she didn't attribute sources to things included in her thesis and academic papers. That is what the definition of plagiarism is. If a student did that, they could face expulsion from the university. Her plea, they're coming after me because I'm black. Forget it. Forget about the anti-Semitism. Forget about the plagiarism. It's because I'm black. These people are racist. These people, Fani Willis and Gay and Eric Adams, they are just as racist as David Duke. They're just as bad as the Klan, or what's left of the Klan. They're just as bad as what they protest they're against. They're just as bad as what they protest they're the victim of. They're nothing but racist. A racist is a racist pig. The Ku Klux Klan were filthy, racist pigs. David Duke is a disgusting human being. I consider him to be a pig in a human body. Well, I consider Fani Willis and Eric Adams. I consider Jeremiah Wright. I consider all these people and Gay to be pigs in human bodies, because a racist is nothing but a filthy pig. And I don't care if that racist is white. I don't care if they're black. I don't care what they are. That includes Joe Biden. Joe Biden has a history of anti-black racism. Robert F. Kennedy publicly demonstrated it. But he gets a pass. The media gives him a pass. Are they talking about it? No. Hillary Clinton's mentor was Bird, a grand dragon in the Klan. Does she get away with it? Yes, she gets a pass. George Favor, the mentor of Bill Clinton, an arch segregationist. That was his mentor. Does he get away with it? Yes, Bill Clinton gets a pass. Hillary Clinton gets a pass. Al Gore's father, U.S. Senator, voted against civil rights, an ultra segregationist from Tennessee. Does Al Gore get a pass? Of course he does. They all get a pass. It's not about race, it's about politics. They simply play the race card for political reasons. They don't care about black people. They don't care about anybody but themselves. It's about power and money. If they can use race, they will use it. If they can use sexual orientation, they will use it. If they can use gender or sex or what, they will use it. They'll use anything they can to create a victim mentality. As long as it's a lie that works to their advantage, they will tell the lie. No matter how hypocritical, that's what they will do, because that's what they are. Banking on the stupidity of people. How can a black person vote for somebody who was pro-segregation like Joe Biden? How can a black person vote for Bill Clinton or Hillary Clinton when their mentors were racist or Al Gore's? But they do. And how can anybody say that Eric Adams and Fani Willis and Letitia James and Bragg and Gay are anything other than racists? They're simply David Duke with a different distribution of skin pigmentation. their skin pigmentation is the only thing that makes them different than David Duke.
You know, Jacob, Booker T. Washington, going back almost 100 years, he said that there are many among us Negroes who like to keep problems of the Negro at the forefront for their own monetary gain. And this is what these people are doing. I mean, even Schumer came to power by getting black people to move out of their homes so they could be rehabbed, and they would get better homes. They move out, and then the homes were rehabbed in that area. And gee, it was 95% white.
Yep, that's what they did in areas of Brooklyn. That's why you see that Brooklyn being gentrified and the trendy neighborhoods. They simply moved the blacks out. What did they do with Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans? Moved the blacks out and redeveloped New Orleans for upper income people. Put the blacks into or housing projects in Houston or something like that, because they want to turn Texas Democrat. Send them to Houston. That's what they do. That's exactly, it's all manipulated. The media is party to it. It is unbelievable that they get away with it, but get away with it they do. Now let's understand something about the election rigging. You've got the John McCain syndrome, the loser legacy. People like Romney and John Cornyn of Texas and Mitch McConnell, they would rather pander to the Democrats than pander to the conservatives and libertarians. They're anti-Trump. They'd rather the Democrats win because ideologically they're the same as Democrats, more or less, more than less. It wouldn't be happening. The Republican, if half the country's Republican, the Republican Party should have the political potency to stop this election rigging, but they don't. Kemp regime in Georgia doesn't do it. Remember, rhinos are as bad as Democrats. John Cornyn is no better than Chuck Schumer. No better. Mitch Romney, he's even worse than many Democrats. He's even worse than many Democrats. This is what you're dealing with. The uselessness of the Republican Party and its leadership.
You know, Jacob, this Brett Bart, who kind of started making people aware of what rhinos were, his marching orders were, let's get rid of the rhinos first, then we can go after the Democrats.
Yes.
But we're
Yes.
going after the Democrats. And so, see, I see rhinos as worse than what you're saying, and worse than Democrats, because they stab you in the back. They've been stabbing us in the back for so long, promising of this. Ted Cruz said it right. They run all conservative, but when the doors are shut down there in voting time, they vote liberal. And
that
people
is the House of Bush. That is the stinking garbage House of Bush.
Yeah, people should go to conservative score and actually look at the way politicians vote. You would see Lindsey Graham has a D score. In other words, he votes more for the Democrats on social liberal policies than he does with the Republicans. Same thing for McConnell. All these guys, they have terrible voting scores. You never believe what a politician says. You only look at the voting record. And
why is Lincoln Collins or Murkowski even in the Republican Party?
Well, Murkowski got supported by
John Cornyn. He's the other scab.
Yeah, Murkowski got supported by Tim Scott, which that did it for me for
that
Tim.
Disappointed me.
Yep.
I like Tim Scott.
Fani Willis.
I like Tim, but man, that's stupid.
Sorry, real quick. I'd like to go back to Fani Willis real quick and ask a real quick question to Ken, or anybody can actually answer it. Is it safe to say that because these people were put in by affirmative action, that their insecurity that they have about their accomplishments has turned into hostility against other races.
Oh,
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, she literally says out in public, she literally said yesterday, I think it was, she said taking campaign cash and keeping it at her house was okay. It's just straight up, hey, this is what I did. I'm done. Yeah, next question. So it's ridiculous. The whole trial's ridiculous. Her persecuting Trump is ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
She's obviously not that smart. She's an affirmative action lawyer. Gay was not that smart. Smart black. Like Professor Walter Williams, God bless his memory. And Thomas Sowell and Candace Owen. They don't need smart blacks, don't need this garbage. They're smart people. Ben Carson doesn't need this garbage. It is only trashy, stupid blacks that need this garbage. Black high achievers. And some of the smartest people in America are black. Thomas Sowell. That man, if anybody doesn't listen to Thomas Sowell, they're out of their mind. If there's anybody in this country should listen to, it's him.
Yep.
What's going on here? They denigrate the smart blacks to elevate the affirmative action trash.
Yeah, and that's the same point they call them Uncle Toms, which is even worse. Every single one.
If never read the book, if anybody read the book of Uncle Tom's Cabin by Harriet Beecher Stowe or saw the play, they would know that Uncle Tom was not an Uncle Tom. He was flogged to death by Simone Legree for not disclosing where runaway slaves were hidden. Uncle Tom was not even an Uncle Tom. That was an invention of Marcus Garvey, the false prophet of the Rastafarian movement, that smoked reefer sacramentally. And here come the Babylon and all that stuff. This was Marcus Garvey. Uncle Tom was not an Uncle Tom. If anybody read the book, they'd see that the black collaborator with the corrupt white establishment in the plantation period was Sambo Tom. Sambo was the one, not Uncle Tom. He was not an Uncle Tom. It's the Sambo. Well, Barack Obama is a Sambo, howbeit a Oreo cookie half-white Sambo. Michelle Obama is a Sambo. Joy Reid is a Sambo. These are Sambos. They simply do the bidding of the liberal white establishment. Look what's happening right now in Washington. Liberal whites don't want desegregated schools now. That was liberal whites. These people,
they betray their own race, Jacob, by their actions.
Yep. Democrats who vote liberal are simply the stooges of white liberals, of the descendants of the old Jim Crow slavery plantation legacy. That's what they are. Yep. They're the Sambos.
I am happy to see that some rappers and influencers are working to change some black votes. I don't know if it's going to be enough, but they are starting to see through their betrayal.
Some rappers are just
comics all
who hit it big in the music industry, and then they're going to lose their money or wind up dead like Biggie Smalls or Tupac. However, other rappers are actually street smart. The lyrics and stuff they show is street smart. Don't underestimate street smarts any more than you should underestimate intellectual smarts. There are people who have street smarts who are more clever than people with a bachelor's degree in communications.
Yep. That's for sure. Moving on to our next story, and I just want to remind everybody that we will be taking a few questions at backstage, so please get them into our good friend Davey. He's monitoring our Rumble, and we will be sure to ask Jacob, David, and Ken different questions depending on who you focus them on. Our next story, for the first time in recent years, this Tokyo stock market has overtaken the Hang Seng, but it seems that Japan has slipped From the third largest economy in the world to the fourth, it was overtaken by Deutschland or Germany.
Yep, Deutschland,
Jacob.
Deutschland, über alles.
Deutschland über
Now this
alles.
look at it's tragicomical. It's a comedy of errors. Not only the Hang Seng in Hong Kong, which had been a massive stock exchange, which the CCP has largely destroyed, but Shanghai, the Wall Street of Asia, has been overtaken by the Tokyo Stock Exchange again. Tokyo used to be the biggest. Now it's the biggest again. Not because Japan is growing, but because China is shrinking. But now it gets really interesting. Now it becomes really ludicrous. Japan has sunk from the third biggest economy in the world to the fourth, overtaken by Germany. Japan has entered recession, as has Britain.
Mm-hmm.
Japan has slipped to fourth place as the biggest economy in terms of GDP after Germany. But Germany has been in recession for nearly 2 years. How can you fall to fourth place on back of Germany when Germany has been in recession and remains so? The German economy is declined substantially. Will find recovery not easy. Yet it's overtaken Japan, not because Germany is doing well, but because Japan is doing badly.
Yeah.
The Tokyo Stock Exchange has overtaken Shanghai, not because Japan is doing well, but because China is doing worse. There's no winners. There's only losers. Losers and bigger losers. You couldn't make this up.
Yeah.
But finally,
Jacob,
wait a second. Finally, the UK and Japan this week, looking at the final quarter of 2023, both Great Britain and Japan are formally in recession, more than 2 quarters of reverse economic growth. Japan and the UK have joined Germany as being in recession. There's no winners. There's only losers and bigger losers. Again, it is absolutely astounding. It is hideous, but that's the reality.
well, one of the things that's happening, Jacob, is while they're going into recession, which slows down the spending of the individuals because, but you have at the same time inflation, which is freaking everybody out, and that so real spending is actually going down, and it's hurting the economy there more. So we may see this accelerate, and this is this is on top of how much the Japanese government is being very accommodating to trying to handle this, and they're being good in the stock market, but nothing's working. Nothing is working, and I'm
the stock market has not done well, just that China has done worse.
Yeah,
Something else has happened now. You have a big division in China in terms of economic output between coastal China and inland China. And this gap is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. We've seen this in northern Italy and southern Italy, northern England, southern England, the American South before the 1960s, and the Midwest and the Northeast and the West Coast. That kind of gap now exists in China, and it's getting worse, and it's going to become worse still. It's unbelievable. No winners, only losers and bigger losers. It's not who's doing well, it's who's doing the least bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
Well, the government of Japan's trying to pump money into the economy, and because wage pressures are coming along, so they're going to give them trillion dollars or more, and they have a budget deficit. I mean, a GDP deficit that's bigger than the U.S. So
Absolutely.
you know, and this trend is going to continue into at least the first half of this year. And with them down, Germany down, and while the UK is not as bad, they're still headed into recession, and who knows
No, they're
what's
in
going to
recession.
happen.
Now in recession.
Yeah,
Britain is in
yeah,
recession.
a deeper
Yeah.
recession, but they just barely slipped 1.01% is something like that. So it's not
Yeah.
bad, but it's great. But it's print more money, man. Let's
I
make
was
it
about to
better.
say,
British
at
government
the
and the
same
bank,
time,
the British government Bank of England want 2% inflation. It is
Yeah.
4%. Despite prolonged high interest rates, they still
Yeah.
don't have the inflation down. Inflation is still there at about 4%. They want it down to 2%. How is it going to end? It's not going to end anytime soon. And Sunak is not a very good prime minister. Another mistake Britain made is not having Suella Braverman. She should have been the prime minister, not Sunak. Suella Braverman should be the PM. But the Tory party is in trouble politically now. They're in trouble politically. With the Labour Party, that is absolutely atrocious. Nonetheless, that is the reality in Britain. That is the reality in Germany. That is the reality in Japan. And that is the reality in China. The US is artificially boosting its economy. It seems to be doing better than all the others, but not with a $34 trillion deficit. Let no one tell you differently.
Yeah.
And not with a CBI that does not take into account gasoline and food.
Yeah.
It's a lie. The American government is lying, but the Chinese government is lying. We do not know how high the public debt is in China between the local, the regional, and the national, and the corporate and the private. We don't know how big it is, but it's a lot bigger than what they admit, which is about 260 something percent. It's much bigger than that in China. Japan, it's more than 200% of GDP. United States, thanks to Biden or Obama, it's climbing. Now, let's also understand something else. Although he was not as bad as the others, he was only a lesser of evils comparatively. Donald Trump did nothing to take on the deficits. It continued to grow under Donald Trump. Not like it is with Biden. He didn't do what Reagan did. Reagan really was the hyper deficit. The harbinger of hyper deficitism was Ronald Reagan, who looted Social Security and various other things. That was Reagan, a pseudo-conservative, okay, a Republican, who people still stupidly think was a conservative. Well, he was certainly not, but they think that. Then what happened with Obama was outrageous. With Trump, it was not as bad, but it was not good. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and it cannot keep getting this big. Although it is a smaller percentage of GDP than the other countries, 34 trillion is 34 trillion. How long can this go on?
Yeah, musical chairs. Who's going to get caught? And what I think you're going to see, I don't know this for sure, but usually the bag of tricks, having been through 5 recessions in my life, maybe 6, is you're going to see possibly tax cuts. But, and so they try to pump that up to put money back into the economy so people can buy and spend more. But it's usually comes way too late. It should have already been done.
Not only that, unless you have a fiscal reduction in the budget, unless you have massive cuts in federal spending, you're only going to increase inflation. You're going to increase the deficit. It's not going to do anything. Yeah, they do it for votes, but it's not going to address the problem.
It's too little, too late, and then also on top of that,
it'll make it worse. It'll make it worse. It's like Reagan buying aircraft carriers with credit cards. If you don't have the money, don't spend it.
Yeah, but and another things that happen, Jacob, is people when they see the inflation keeps coming, they're more apt to go out and buy and say, "Oh, I better buy it now because it's going to be more down the road." They quit saving, so that goes down. you know,
That's
and then
also what happens in China. Let's understand something. The phenomena of not just stagflation, but a deflationary economy where people won't buy something because they think in 6 months from now it's going to be a lot cheaper. There's a disincentive to spend.
yeah. So also, you know, places like Japan, they'll lower the price of their cars and then try to subsidize them through the government so that people will buy them. You know, so that you might see some downward pressure there on cars, and which means that America, whoever buys these cars, then the consumer debt goes through the roof. I think we have right now record consumer household debt here in
But it's
America.
not only that. When governments do things like that, subsidize production, and they're doing it in America with solar panels and whatever. When governments when governments do things like that, one or two or both are going to happen. More inflation, bigger deficit, or both. Nobody gives you something for nothing other than God.
Very true.
It's
Well, maybe he'll
short-term
come back
gain.
soon.
Short-term political gain until the bill comes in the mail. Just think of a credit card. Just think of irresponsible use of a credit card.
Well, I wanted to speak a little bit about that. Now, Jacob, right now, even though Japan is going through a recession, they are buying military weapons at a rate
Yep.
that has not been seen since the 1940s. They are rearming Japan.
Yep.
For
They have no choice.
Yeah, they have no choice.
Mhm.
Correct.
Mm.
They feel abandoned by the American alliance. So the only
Thanks
way
to Joe
that they can
Obama, they have
defend
no
themselves.
choice. Thanks to Joe Obama,
Yep.
they have no choice. Now, I'm not against them building up their own military and getting it,
Yeah.
not getting a free ride in the back of the American taxpayer. I have no problem with that. I'm just saying that's the reason it's happening.
Yeah.
They're
You got the
building
same
those
thing in
submarines.
Europe. Notice the Europeans are spending more on their own defense now because they know they cannot rely on America anymore. Now, they should spend more on their own defense, but understand the reason why they're doing it.
Japan is building these submarines that should help them if China comes after them. They're super quiet, super advanced, and they're actually diesel electric, not nuclear, which is interesting because they're super quiet and advanced. So they're
Mhm.
cranking them out. I think they're doing one every year or two. I'm not sure. I can't
The
remember.
fact that the diesel electric means they're cheaper.
Yep, that's
Correct.
another thing.
Correct. And you put all of this on the back of the fact that the demographics in Japan, it's not anything that they're trying to address. It just
Nope.
slips further and further. The people who are supporting Japan are shrinking as far as working aged adults. And the expansion of the elderly that need state pensions, state funds, state healthcare, all of that is increasing every single year, while less and less children are being born in that country.
That's not only China and Japan, it is South Korea. South Korea is in at least as bad condition as Japan is.
Exactly.
I say we're with them because our generation is most people on Social Security, and I think we're going to try to drain it before we leave.
Yeah.
Thanks, David. Gen X really appreciates that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just for you, Jay. Just for you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll just keep working.
Yes, we appreciate
Yeah,
it.
me, David, and Jacob are in that same category, man.
Yeah.
Well, God bless you. You guys deserve it.
Yeah.
Luckily, I have a mind. I can still work.
Yes.
Yeah.
We've earned it. Yeah.
I would tell you to invest and don't count on it. But I think I would say more likely or not, Jesus is going to come before you need it.
Oh,
I hope-
hallelujah. Hallelujah.
I do too.
I pray that every day.
Lord,
Let's move
come
on to
help.
our next story. We got a few more minutes before we go to backstage. So I definitely want to get to this next story. Jacob, you brought this up. George Santos has lost his seat to a Democrat And now the Pennsylvania House is now in the control of the Democrats.
Yes.
Just like before, I believe in the election of 2022, the projections were a red wave, and it turned
That's
out to
right.
be a red trickle.
The failed
Are we seeing
political
the same
leadership
thing?
of the failed political leadership of the Republican National Committee and of Donald Trump. Now notice, once Donald Trump hosted with that lake woman from Arizona, the gay gala, the homosexual gala at Mar-a-Lago, and then began to modify his position on abortion in the wrong direction. I believe God took his hand off Donald Trump. Donald Trump bears primary responsibility for what happened in Pennsylvania, in Georgia, and to a degree, at least, in New Hampshire. You can blame the RNC and the rhinos, and that's just as well, but we cannot give Donald Trump immunity from culpability. He is responsible. Herschel Walker's a nice guy, but he couldn't take on Warnock. They had that black conservative woman, Catherine Barron, I believe her name was. He backed Amos Oz, a Muslim, and Fetterman won the election. Now, Fetterman has not turned out to be as bad as we thought, but he's a Democrat. Same thing in New Hampshire. It's not good. Donald Trump's political leadership has not been competent. Now he is trying to put his daughter into the chairmanship of the RNC. That looks imperial. That looks like nepotism. It is not. Now, I know he wants to surround himself by people he can trust, which is family. He's been betrayed so often by rhinos and by neocons, but it looks bad. I did not approve of him having Jared Kushner involved in his administration, and I do not approve of his daughter being the RNC chairman nominee. Donald Trump bears the lion's share, or at least half the responsibility, the RNC, the rest, for what happened in 2022. They lost in the Senate. They were positive they were going to regain it, and they lost. Narrowly won the House, and now they've lost further. In New York, another seat, reducing the narrow Republican majority in the Senate by another, in the House by another seat. And Pennsylvania, a crucial swing state, next November, has now flipped to the Democrats. Donald Trump is not a good leader politically. God's hand is no longer on that man. You cannot listen to people like Newt Gingrich and Dick Morris and whatever you did. They have no credibility anymore. They should be ignored. Their track record is too bad. And we should have no confidence in Donald Trump. I don't believe God's hand is on him anymore. I believe he bears 50% at least of the responsibility of what happened in the midterms in 2022. And it does not look all that promising for 2024. Don't think the Republicans can't lose. People knew how disastrous Biden was with the inflation in 2022 and the wars with the Ukraine and with Afghanistan. They knew that. And still they made gains in the Senate and nearly kept control of the House. That is because of the useless garbage the Republican Party and its leadership are. The RNC chairman. I'm glad she's gone. But who are they going to get next? Donald Trump's daughter? Or is it a family enterprise? Donald Trump must accept responsibility for his failed leadership in 2022, but he doesn't. I don't see any bright future on the horizon. The Republicans may win. I hope the Democrats lose, but I don't think it's going to be a shoo-in. I can see how they can lose. It was unthinkable they would lose in 2022, and they virtually did. Don't think it can't happen again. Look at what's happened in Pennsylvania. Look at what's happened in New York. And I'm telling you, God's hand is no longer on Donald Trump the way it was.
To go along with the topic, I find it very interesting, Ken, that you have a person who was the RNC chair before Ronna McDaniels, is Michael Steele. He is now a top contributor for MSNBC. Now
Yes.
that Mitt Romney's little daughter is gone, sorry, Mitt Romney's niece. Where do you think
Yes.
it's
Niece.
CNN? CNN?
I, they always get. I don't. Yeah. I don't care if it's a Republican or Democrat. They always end up in where the who was the former speaker of the who followed
RNC?
who followed K. Yeah, who was before KJP?
Oh,
What was her name?
what's her
The
name?
Raggedy
Yes,
Ann.
yes.
Raggedy Ann.
Raggedy Ann.
She has her own show.
Yeah, she
She has her
does.
own show. Yeah, they have their own show. Even McInerney was on Fox for a little while, right? Isn't she on Fox? So I don't care what side. It's just it's all a joke. It's all corruptocrats. Both sides. Both sides.
This just in, breaking news actually. Donald Trump ordered to pay $350 million in New York civil trial case by corrupt judge Arthur F. Engoron. $350 million. David, you are muted.
That's what I was talking about a little earlier, that went out. So
Yeah.
Well, it's Jen Psaki is Raggedy Ann. She has her show,
that's right.
But even more to the point, these are Republican national chairs that then have a relationship with liberal mainstream media. And
Yes.
A person that is connected to Mitt Romney has the same ends with the liberal media state, the MSN.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So look forward to lots of commentary from her during her times trying to right the Republican Party, which I'm sure she thinks she's a victim, much like Fani Willis.
Of course.
All right, we're coming to the end of this portion of Catching Up with Jacob. It's been
one more point that we did not talk about very briefly. It's important. There was a fear among the Democrats that Robert Kennedy, because of his family name, would divide the Democratic vote. But now there is a prospect of Manchin, a Democrat, and Romney, a Republican, forming a ticket. This would not just hurt the Democrats, it would hurt the Republicans co-equally. The only question is who it would hurt more. Would it hurt the Republicans more or the Democrats more? But a Romney would draw rhinos away from Trump, and Manchin would draw centrist Democrats away from Biden or whoever else they get to take his place. This is a very interesting factor that's come into play, in addition to Robert Kennedy. Very interesting indeed. Just mentioning it.
Absolutely. One more story that I wanted to try to get in. We have 7 minutes to cover it. Inflation and the economic woes for the Biden. Will it make a difference for the election? Will people wake up to the reality that the economy is in serious issues? I want to go over this article from Zero Hedge, and I'm going to give you the numbers of the layoffs at each company. And I just want you to listen, and then you guys can all react, please. From Twitch, which is a social media company that does videos similar to YouTube, 35% of their workforce is gone. Roomba, manufacturers of the famous Android vacuum, 31%. Hasbro toy line, 20% gone. The LA Times, 20% of the workforce reduced. Spotify, 70%. Levi Jeans, 15%. Xerox, 15%. Qualtrics, 14%. Wayfair, 13%. Duolingo, 10%. Washington Post, WAPO, I believe Amazon owns the Washington Post, 10% workforce gone. 12, 10% of the workforce. eBay, 9%. Business Insider, 8%. PayPal, 7%. Okta, 7%. Charles Schwab, 6%. DocuSign, 6%. Cisco, 5%. UPS, 2%. BlackRock, 3%. Paramount, 3%. Citigroup, 20,000 employees gone.
Oh,
Pixar,
wow.
1,300 employees gone. These are very, very some of these are very vital to the economy of the country. Not only that, but some of these are leaders of business around the world.
Yeah.
With these types of layoffs, do they see something that the common American person does not see?
UPS, 12,000, mainly upper management also.
Yeah,
Wow.
Cisco 4,000. Yeah. Remember I did this partial list, James? Remember I did this partial list? Yeah. So it's gotten bigger. I think I did it like 3 weeks ago, right? On Ken's Corner. And this is 3 weeks later, and it's starting to get bigger and bigger and bigger. It's starting to you need to follow this. This is when everything contracts. It's when things start contracting.
It's
And I
all,
bet you
it's definitely, these are for profitability. I mean, that's what Wall Street, Bloomberg, all these guys are talking about. They're looking for profitability and what can we get rid of? Okay. And you always cut labor first because that's always your biggest expense, so.
The other
And
dimension to this, of course, is
talking about-
AI taking over jobs. Another
Yeah.
factor
Yeah.
is the advent of AI taking over jobs.
Talking to my UPS guy, he said, those guys up there that are being cut, they don't know what's going on anyway, so it's always the sergeants and the worker bees that actually do the work. I'm sure that there's business management, but
you're hearing things like I've never seen it this bad before, by each person in each industry. So
yep.
to Jacob's point, we're going to try to fit this one in here. Here's a video, Jacob, and to your point, how AI is taking over the industries. Here is a video that was created by AI from a text prompt, and the text prompt basically said, create a scene of a marketplace with two people following them through a Tokyo marketplace in winter with cherry blossoms in the air. And the AI came up with this.
Oh man, I want to go there. Looks beautiful.
Oh, wow.
Looks nice.
Wow.
AI generated.
That's AI generated. Wow.
So,
well, unfortunately, snow would have killed them blooms.
Yeah.
there is that. There is that.
Yes. There shouldn't be any. We don't have any blooms on our trees out here.
But this goes to a deeper matter. What Jacob's talking about is absolutely correct. If you can use a text prompt to create a scene like that, a minute scene like that, why do you need an expensive location camera shoot anymore when AI can do it all for you? That's why there has been writer strikes in Hollywood. That is why there has been actor strikes in Hollywood. They want to prevent this technology being incorporated to their industry. But this has greater ramifications than that.
They'll never stop it. On the contrary, that technology that at present is only affordable by Paramount or the major studios or Disney or something, or mainstream media or social media, that technology is going to become a consumer durable, and people will be able to do it on their own computers, their own tablets even. It's only a matter of time. They're not going to stop it.
YouTube actually is one of these things that are facilitating this change in the habits of people going to the regular streaming sources. Now you will see an advent of many individual creators using this to create all new forms of entertainment, really. But more to the point, how easy would it be gentlemen, I leave this last question to you. To use AI to come up with a scene that would maybe disgrace a politician, or to perhaps show an event that could facilitate a war, that everyone believed and reported as the truth, but was
Yep.
just a fabrication of
Yep.
AI.
Yep.
I
Just
kind
Or
like
of,
the Orson Welles War of the World.
you read my mind, David. I was thinking of that, the broadcast of
Mhm.
Panicked America, and that was just radio. Imagine
Yep.
what this could do.
Yes.
the
Yes.
flat Earth people are going to
absolutely.
love it. The flat Earth people will love it because they can use it so the Earth is flat.
Ken, you have anything you want to add to that?
No, I'm
All right.
I'm good.
right. Well, that concludes our show for the front stage of Catching Up with Jacob. If you want to catch us on the back end, watch backstage, please move over to Rumble. We're going to put Jacob on the hot seat. We're going to ask him some questions. Hopefully, we can get David and Ken to jump in on some of those questions as well. And then we have our final story of the day. You don't want to miss it. It deals with Christians and pseudo-Christians, let's call it, coming under attack from the mainstream, coming under attack from the people that are bowed down to and submitted to because they seem to have everyone's fascination. They want to cater to them. Anyway, that all will be found only exclusively on Backstage. We hope to see you there. Till then, thank you for watching this episode of Catching Up with Jacob. Take care. Hello, and thank you for watching Moriel TV. There are so many things that are happening at Moriel Ministries worldwide, from the Philippines to Japan, to India to Africa, and back to Europe and the United States. So many of our brothers and sisters are spreading the good news of Jesus Christ to this lost world. We are so thankful for your prayers. God has been faithful and has blessed us in so many ways. If you'd like to partner with our efforts abroad and at home, please take a moment to click the link in the description and help us as the Lord leads you. Thank you very much, and God bless.